There's Hugh. You made it.
All right, Chair Dickey, we're ready whenever you are.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to start this meeting by recognizing the homeland of the 30 First Nation communities of this area we now call the Fraser Valley Regional District, where we live, work, and learn. Important decisions that we make at local government level can affect First Nation communities and Indigenous peoples and organizations in many different ways, both today and in the future. So as part of our collective responsibility, I commit that we continually examine the work we do to ensure that our project, plans, initiatives, and discussion are guided by the principles of inclusion, collaboration, and reconciliation. So with that in mind, I'd like to call to order the October 12, 2023 meeting of the Electoral Area Services Committee. Ms. Kinnaman.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. So the first item on our agenda is your report from the Regional and Corporate Services Committee meeting held this morning.
Good thing you reminded me. This morning, we talked about regional grant and aid applications. The Deroche School and ACES were denied, but staff recommend that there's a possibility that they might receive grant and aids from their electoral areas. The Cascade Lower Canyon Community Forest, Director Horn offered to provide direction to the community forest from the extensive experience from the Mission Community Forest. And in the director's reports, Director Horn spoke with Province of Ministry of UCM regarding the highway patrol changes that are evolving. And Director Siemens also has been working on this issue. And that was the limit of his talk during the open meeting. I will turn things back to our CAO.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. So the next item on our agenda is item 4, which is approval of the agenda, addenda, and late items.
Promotion, move Director Johnson, second Director Castle. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
Item 5.1 is building bylaw and BC Building Code contraventions at 14750 Sylvester Road in Electoral Area F. There's a motion for your consideration.
Okay.
Move Davidson.
Move Director Dixon, second Director.
Oh, sorry, Chair Dickey.
Sure,
I apologize. This is an item that there's an opportunity for members of the public to comment. So if we just want to seek that opportunity, if there's anyone online or in the boardroom who would like to speak to this file.
Thank you. So we do not have any members of the public joining us on Zoom, and we don't have any members of the public in our building at the moment. So there is nobody to provide any comment.
Great, thank you. So we've already had a mover and seconder. Any discussion?
Davidson.
All in favor?
Davidson.
I think Director Davidson.
Director Davidson.
I'm just question through to staff. I'm looking at the chronology of the correspondence with the owner, and it looks like there's a hiatus of the best part of 5 years between 2016 and 2021. I'm wondering if staff could speak to that. I mean, is this because of lack of resources or some other cause? I'd just like to understand. It's a pretty hefty delay. Thank you.
Sure. Through the chair to Director Davidson, I think we'll just have Graham Danilou speak to that item.
Thank you. Through the chair. Looking at the staff report, it seems the property was sold a couple of times during this period. We had letters on January 25th of 2017 mailed out to the property owners. Another letter in 2017 requesting access, 2018. And then I understand nothing until April of 2021. That would just reflect prioritization of our efforts over that period between 2018 and 2021.
Okay.
To be clear, focusing our efforts on other files that had a greater risk or a higher sensitivity.
Right. So I'm just raising the question. I think the same question will apply to the next item on the agenda as well. But it's kind of this feeds to this perception that bylaw doesn't do much. And I know it's not accurate, but but when there's these lengthy delays between an issue being raised and us getting to the show cause problem, or not show cause, but the notice on title stage of it, it just, and on top of that too, we don't really have a good way of letting the public know that a given bylaw infraction is moving along, and it just kind of feeds in this narrative that FERD bylaw won't do anything, or if it does do something, it just takes a long time. So I'm just looking for ways to improve that communication, shorten these timelines. If staff need resources to make that happen, that would help with the impression of I think what the public has in terms in general of around bylaw enforcement. Would certainly be open to hearing staff proposals come budget time. Anyway, that was it. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, contrary, motion carries.
Item 5.2 is building bylaw and BC Building Code contraventions at 36225 Bayer Road in Electoral Area F. And again, we will provide the opportunity for anyone wishing to speak to this item from the public.
Thank you. Once again, we do not have anybody on Zoom, and we do not have any members of the public in our boardroom. So you can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion.
Move Davidson.
Davidson, second Director Adamo. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, the motion carries.
Item 6.1 is a delegation on the plan to support BC's transition to a lower carbon future. And we have Ms. Kim Halowski from Fortis BC with us today.
Welcome, Ms. Kolaski.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Sounds great.
So good afternoon, everyone. I am Kim Halowski, Community Relations Manager with Fortis BC, and also joining me today is my colleague Saraz Dalmir, Community Relations Manager. I would like to acknowledge that we are speaking here today on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Stolo Coast Salish peoples. And we are pleased to be here today to share with you Fortis BC's low carbon transition plan. We truly value partnering with the communities, understanding your needs, and really working collaboratively. So our plan is to share our transition engagement plan, understand what really your community is, obviously the various different areas, and also answer any questions you may have as we're all striving to meet our climate action goals. So just a few quick fast facts about Fortis BC. I'm sure that you're already aware that Fortis BC is a regulated utility company that delivers natural gas across the province. However, what many people do not know is that Fortis BC also provides electrical service in the interior as well as in the Kootenays. We own and operate 4 hydroelectric dams and own and operate approximately 7,000 kilometers of electric transmission and distribution lines, in addition to our more than 51,000 kilometers of transmission and distribution gas pipelines. We also serve 135 communities across BC and 58 Indigenous communities across 150 traditional territories. As an integrated energy utility company, we deliver both gas and electricity, and we see the importance of both energy systems working together to provide a diversified pathway to support our communities. This chart demonstrates what happened to our province's energy system this past December on one of our most peak energy demand systems, pretty close to Christmas. The demand on Fortis BC's energy system was over 21,000 megawatts, almost twice that of BC Hydro's. Assets such as our Tilbury facility in Delta are vital to helping us store energy when we need it most. Recent academia studies have concluded that there's not enough electrical capacity in the province to support our energy needs. UVic's study also focused on Metrovan's capacity and understood, basically clarified, that if Metro Vancouver was to replace all natural gas with electricity, we would need the equivalent of approximately 6 Site Cs. Several months ago, the Premier, as well as BC Hydro, announced and confirmed that there's an electrical shortfall and put out a request for clean energy for 2024. We truly see the need for a diversified pathway, which is one of the reasons we wanted to talk to this group today, to share some of our thoughts, to hear some of your concerns, and work together collaboratively. So we have ambitious goals to significantly reduce our customers' carbon footprint, as well as to commit to a low carbon energy future. Our plans are guided and in alignment with the provinces. And as you can see on the screen, we have 4 pillars that are called our Clean Growth Pathway to 2050 to guide us in our reduction efforts. Our first pillar focuses on energy efficiency. And since 2010, FortisBC has invested over $300 million in energy efficiency and rebate programs. Our second pillar focuses on renewable and low carbon gases, which Shiraz will expand on momentarily. Our third pillar focuses on zero and low carbon transportation. We recognize that the transportation sector accounts for about 40% of the province's total GHG emissions. We've helped deploy over 900 natural gas powered vehicles and are fueling 7 ferries with LNG. We also have installed 42 electrical vehicle charging stations in the interior. Our last pillar focuses on global LNG in the marine and industry sector. LNG produced at our Tilbury facility can help replace diesel and reduce 90% of particulate matter in the airshed. When used in industry in China, it also reduces emissions by approximately 50%. Now my colleague Shiraz will chat about renewable and low carbon gases.
Great, thanks, Kim. Shiraz Dowler, Manager Community Relations for the Lower Mainland. So I'm going to now pivot to one of the most critical components of our low carbon transportation, low carbon decarbonization plan and transition. And that is the second pillar, which is renewable and low carbon gases. And typically, the first question we get asked is, what is renewable natural gas? So I thought we'd start right there. Renewable natural gas is derived from biogas. Which is produced from decomposing organic matter that typically is, for example, waste from landfills, wastewater treatment plants, curbside organics, agricultural waste, wastewater treatment plants and facilities. So essentially, simply put, it is the stuff that we carry out to the end of our driveway and drop into our green bin, or the stuff we flush down the toilet, or the stuff that is the waste product from the food that we are blessed with here in the region. These are biogenic sources. What that means is that their emissions are already a part of the existing carbon cycle, environmental carbon cycle, as opposed to traditional forms of, for example, gas, which come from, or waste, essentially materials that have been buried under the ground for millions and millions of years, absorbing quite a high amount of carbon. So what we're essentially doing is displacing one for the other. And we work with local farms, like I said, landfills, you can see from the image over here, green energy companies, as well as municipalities and local governments to find those sources. And what we do is capture, purify that methane, which would otherwise escape into the atmosphere. And RNG blends seamlessly into the existing natural gas system. And as I said, it's displacing equivalent amounts of molecules that we would otherwise purchase on the open market that come from conventional sources. This makes it essentially a drop-in fuel. What that also means is that not only can you replace existing methane with it, but it also means that customers do not need to change anything in their homes. So that means they don't have to retrofit their existing energy infrastructure, their gas appliances, or their equipment. So this slide here just helps to kind of give a sense of where many of these sources are. So these are our partners for renewable natural gases throughout the province. In the Lower Mainland and the Fraser Valley, we have partners such as Seabreeze Farms, Lulu Island Wastewater Treatment Plant, that's Metrovan, Fraser Valley Biogas, which is now operated by Evergen, Surrey Biofuel Facility, and then shortly we will also have the Vancouver Delta Landfill RNG project, and of course a facility you're all familiar with, Piglands Farm, right here in Chilliwack. It's a really important supplier for us. We plan to continue building these partnerships and working with regional districts and municipalities to get more of your names and your community's names here on this map. Now, here's another really important piece. What is the emission factor? I've kind of alluded to this already. What's important when you see this table for the first time is that it's, as you can tell, virtually every single form of energy emits carbon dioxide. Zero carbon energy doesn't actually exist yet. It's just a matter of degrees. So the amount of CO2, I kind of applied this earlier, varies depending on how long the source has remained underground and absorbing carbon. Renewable natural gas emissions that are coming from our human and animal activities are already counted in the environmental carbon cycle. So they're not adding anything new, as opposed to having to capture and having to use from materials that you're actually pulling out of the ground and now having to burn. So that makes it by definition carbon neutral. As you can also see from this table, the highlighted renewable natural gas CO2 emission is 0.29 of a kilogram. So it's 294 grams per gigajoule. A gigajoule, to put that into context, a single family home with 2 adults, 2 kids, let's say 2,000 square feet, 2,500 square feet, uses about 85 gigajoules of energy for their heating and their space heating and their water, hot water. What you'll also see is that our electric grid, while being very clean, renewable natural gas is about 10 times cleaner. So it is the cleanest, lowest emission form of energy that is available for your citizens and businesses today. And what's also interesting to note with this is with our electric grid being relatively constrained, because electric grids as an electric company, when you're developing one, you have to make sure that you're not overbuilding it. Otherwise, the costs associated with the delivery of electricity can be extraordinarily high for all residents and for businesses. So with that, when the provincial grid is low on electricity, that typically occurs when there are low reservoir levels, meaning that the dams don't have the same amount of water they normally would. The electric utility purchases from outside of the jurisdiction. The jurisdictions typically purchase from are Alberta, Washington State, as well as Oregon. I use the electricity GHG emissions from Alberta as an important one in the evenings, and when the reservoirs are low, we're purchasing 222 kilogram of CO2 per gigajoule of electricity. So in other words, it's utilizing all the tools that we have. We wouldn't want to try to just rely on one single form of energy to do it, because we would invariably end up increasing our CO2 emissions, not actually decreasing them. And the other piece to renewable gases, and this is important as we move forward, because we are decarbonizing our system virtually every day, as you saw with all of that list and table of all the different suppliers that we have. Affordable energy is incredibly important for our customers, and we know that it's incredibly important for every community. While renewable natural gas rates are higher, as you can see from this table, than traditional natural gas, conventional natural gas is still considered the lowest cost form of energy that's available. RNG is about half the price of a combined step 1, step 2 residential rate for electricity. So putting that into context, a single family home using traditional natural gas would have an annual bill, and again, this is using that same example of a family of 4, 2 adults, 2 kids, about 2,200 square feet. It's about $1,200 a year for your space heating and your hot water. Going to 100% electric home, so essentially taking that home and now converting everything to electricity, before the conversion costs, so the annual operating cost works out between $3,000 and $3,500. I do put a caveat in that, and that does not incorporate efficiency percentages from different types of electric heating. Electric resistance is not exactly the most efficient. Heat pumps can be more efficient. As an electric company, we offer those as well. However, with heat pumps, they typically operate in varying degrees of efficiency depending upon the season. So when it's warmer and sort of shoulder seasons, they can work more efficiently than they do during colder winter months and winter days. That was particularly apparent with the slide that Kim showed earlier with the peak amounts of energy that are being utilized in the province. If you want that same house at 100% RNG, the cost would be about $1,750, $1,760 per year. So it is possible to actually achieve lower carbon emissions while still being affordable. And I'm going to now hand this back over to Kim for a slide or two.
Excellent. So one of the questions we often get asked is, do we have enough renewable gas to meet these goals? The answer is yes. We are in a rampant stage of procuring RNG. We do have 20-year contracts with suppliers for up to 18 million gigajoules, which is equivalent to the Site C dam, which is equivalent to heating 320,000 homes. So transitioning to renewable gas is actually leveraging our existing infrastructure, the pipelines that we've got in the ground, and also allows us to meet those peak energy needs. Looking towards the future, we did partner with the province and did a study on renewable sources and found that the province of BC has twice the renewable resources that we need by 2050 to meet this demand. So it is definitely within, just requires partnership, effort, and conversation. When we're looking at our renewable gas supply, we are currently on track to have 15% renewable natural gas flowing through our infrastructure by 2030 and looking at having 75% by 2050. So we currently have an application in front of the BC Utility Commission, which is our regulator. If approved, this tariff would ensure that all new residential buildings receive 100% renewable natural gas tied to the lifespan of the building, not tied to the actual ownership of the building. What this does, it allows us again to displace traditional natural gas molecules with renewable natural gas molecules and helps us meet some of the more stringent GHG reduction targets for new buildings as we look at various levels of step code as well.
And one last slide before we finish off. And this is another form of RNG that we want to talk a little bit about, as the slide points out. Today's gas infrastructure is tomorrow's hydrogen system. Fortis is currently partnering with UBC Okanagan and a number of other academic institutions to determine the feasibility of hydrogen in our system and blending it. So what is hydrogen? How's it made? Hydrogen gas is colorless. It's odorless and tasteless, just like traditional gases or renewable natural gas. Hydrogen emits no carbon dioxide when it's burned. This is important. What it comes out the tailpipe, so to speak, is water vapor. It can be produced by electrolysis or by separation of methane into its component elements. And we envision developing hydrogen hubs throughout the province to connect dedicated hydrogen supply for hard to abate sectors, particularly in industry and transportation. And then over time, we'll start to connect those hubs together over the province while we're also blending hydrogen directly into our system. So with these plans, we would be really targeting to help build a blueprint to support the province's hydrogen strategy. As we can see from everything we're presented, clearly the energy landscape is changing at a very rapid pace. We want to be cognizant that FortisBC is an energy delivery company. Whatever we deliver through our gas pipelines needs to be relevant for the energy needs of our communities today and into the future. We have over 50,000 kilometers of gas pipelines ready to use, and our plan is to decarbonize using multiple renewable forms and low carbon gases. So we wish to be nimble. We need to be innovative and open-minded in order to be very successful in this rather challenging and complex environment, and it's this highly complex challenge. However, we also need to be cautious of restrictive policies that would, in essence, put all our eggs in one basket. And what we're trying not to do is to limit energy choice and limit low carbon energy choice, as well as resiliency and affordable energy solutions for our communities.
That concludes the formal part in a nutshell. We'd love to hear any questions you may have.
Good. Thank you, Ms. Lowski and Mr. Dalmer. Directors, any questions, discussion around their energy future? Dr. Dixon. Oh, no, Director Adam.
Thanks very much. Thanks for your presentation. Very nice. Just looking towards the future and the expansion into certain areas in the rural communities. What is the plan for, say, beyond the Fraser Valley to some of the newer, larger communities that are now growing?
I think what we're doing, and this is probably true with all the utilities in the provinces, as communities are growing, we're starting to make sure that we are already providing services. So one of the things with our gas system is we have the ability to extend it and to do so typically in an affordable way. We're looking towards where the largest growth is, and that's actually a part and parcel of the conversations we have directly with the municipalities and with the local governments, and determining as you're trying to attract businesses, you're trying to attract a larger tax base as a result, and people and then services. So it typically we recognize it to be an incredibly complex little maelstrom. So our job is to make sure that whatever we're doing, we can ensure that we can continue to serve it in an affordable way. So we have policies around how we extend our main pipelines out into communities. We typically work in our residential and commercial side of our business. We actually have dedicated teams who come out and work with, in some cases, the businesses or even new subdivisions. So they're working with the developers in each of those regions. So we already have some of those folks. So that's actually an interesting conversation. Likely we probably would have offline if you're interested, because there's quite a bit of work going on right now. Hope that's helpful.
Good. Thank you, Director Adamo. Director Dixon.
Thank you. I have two, kind of a follow-up on that one. So it's not available in my area, and I'm in the ALC and ALR. So I'm hearing just from what you just said that it's not coming because there isn't any big development in the books. Is that kind of accurate?
It really does depend on the growth and the connectivity.
Okay. So
There are opportunities when we talked a little bit about RNG, like in terms of farmland and some of the more rural areas, looking at the potential sources to help be feedstock for RNG. In terms of true connectivity, that is up to looking at where the development and where the needs are.
thank you. And I do appreciate the RNG and the work with that. My community also has had a bit of a bad experience with that, and not so much with the RNG, but with the product that is left over from when the organics go into the system in whether it's Surrey Biofuels or the other. There are products that are left over that are not maybe quite ready, and it just and the problem is that just came up and ended up in my area and has become problematic. So I think just an awareness that, as far as I understand, there is something left over after all the top quality things have been used, and that maybe that there needs to be a plan for the leftovers as well. Like where should it really be going?
Appreciate that. We did have a conversation today with Surrey about that as well. So
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. Just curious, the LNG facility that Portis is involved with, what's the extent of that?
Oh, yeah. I think that you're mentioning what's called our Tilbury facility. So that is actually an expansion of the existing facility. So that is already a part and parcel of the overall system in the Lower Mainland. It provides storage for the coldest days. Typically, it provides about 3 to 4 days worth of energy for the majority of the Lower Mainland on a very, very cold day. What we're doing is expanding it because we're also seeing that energy needs are increasing. Our population growth is considerable throughout various parts of the Lower Mainland. And as a result, the need to be able to backstop when we're getting these very cold days. And we're also noticing now, we're seeing more what we call degree days is kind of the name for it, where the temperature is below -12. Historically, we would have a certain number. That number has started to increase trend line wise over the last probably decade. As a result, the need for having greater storage is important. It will also have additional components. The fourth pillar that Kim had demonstrated in our slides is global GHG emissions through LNG in particular. There are a lot of countries, well, for example, my phone comes from not this country. It is produced in a different country where the energy and the inputs of this are very high carbon. Coal-fired power is probably the primary driver of that. So if we're able to actually start reducing or actually displacing coal-fired power then with LNG, then that is something we would like to do. And that second part of that project is expanding that. We're one of the only utilities in Western Canada that already ships LNG to mainland China for that very purpose. So it would actually help with actually starting to advance more decarbonization, particularly in the manufacturing sector. So there's a bunch to it.
You do ship LNG to Asia?
Yes, small. We're probably one of the smallest.
Right.
shippers,
In
but we actually do.
comparison with the Prince Rupert operations, this will be like 1% or?
Ooh, that's a good question, which I
Yeah.
don't think I would have an
Yeah,
answer for
okay.
myself.
Yeah.
Different business line, but Canada and British Columbia are still quite far behind, I think in sort of the global space, but there's a need to catch up, particularly when it comes to the emissions reductions. Another piece too that's important is all of the products that come from mainland China are via ship. Well, those ships use really dirty fuel. In fact, the sum total on an annual basis of the CO2 emissions of the ships that carry the product here is about 68 million tons to 70 million tons CO2 a year. To put that in context, British Columbians produce 64 to 68. So it's the same amount. So LNG can also be used to fuel those ships. So that's another really important expansion component. So it's kind of the use every single tool you've got to actually start to make a big impact.
Great.
So that's helpful.
Good. Any further discussion, directors? Doesn't appear so. So thank you very much for your presentation today, and
Thank you for your time.
we're very appreciative. Ms. Kinnaman.
7.1 is the draft Electoral Area Services Committee meeting minutes of September 14th, 2023.
Motion, Director Johnson, second, Director Dixon. All in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
8.1 is the 2023 grant and aid application for the Lake Era Community Association. There is a motion for your consideration.
Okay, look for a motion. Move Director Wardenberg, second, Director Johnson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
9.1 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Area A Garbage Disposal Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw number 1721.
Motion, Director Johnson, second, Director Dixon. Discussion. Question to staff. I remember years ago, there was a lot of material that was trucked into that landfill, as I remember, from elsewhere, and it was a revenue generator. Is that still the case, or?
Through the chair to Director Dickey. That's not the case anymore. Our operational certificate at the landfill no longer permits us to accept those higher revenue soils that we were accepting.
So it's going to be just local community waste in the future.
That's right. I mean, that's not to say we wouldn't necessarily accept materials from outside of the area. We're always looking for cover material at the landfill. The challenge is that because we can't accept higher levels of contamination, they're cheaper options, and it just doesn't make sense for the marketplace to truck it up to Area 8.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
10.1 is covenants, geohazard and well treatment for boundary adjustment subdivision file 3320 between 9633 and 9643 Hess Road, Electoral Area C.
So moved. Move Director Castle. Second, Director Adamo. And discussion, Director Castle.
Yes, just a point of order. It is Area G. The agenda was updated since it went out.
Good. Thank you, Director Castle and staff. This covenant that's required, do we have any mandate to enforce that, or is this just goes on title and we forget about it?
Thank you for the question, Chair. With respect to the geohazards, we enforce those covenants through our building permitting processes, and so that's an effective way to address the covenant requirements around hazards. The covenant provisions around water quality are there really to guide and inform owners about the need to maintain the systems that are put into their homes, in this case, to remove excess iron. And we wouldn't be looking to enforce that covenant or to monitor the effectiveness of the filtration system or whatever they're using in the home. So it's really a tool to inform owners of the requirements to maintain those systems into the future.
Good. Thank you for the nice explanation, Mr. Danilus. Any discussion further? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
Item 11.1 is cannabis regulations, and we have a staff presentation by Andrea Antofea.
Our regional grow show expert. Welcome. Pardon me? We were wondering if we could get the blinds dropped. That's very hard on our eyes here.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. No, not at all. There we go. Welcome, Ms. Antipea.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So I've already been introduced, but I'm Andrea and I work in the Electoral Area Planning Department as a planner. And I'm here today to talk to you guys about cannabis. So after the legalization of cannabis in 2018, planning staff had received a lot of inquiries and interest regarding cannabis production facilities within the regional district. Based on the number of inquiries and input from the FERD board, the land use policy for cannabis production, processing, and retail sales in the electoral areas was adopted in 2019. The implementation of this policy was broken down into 2 phases. Phase 1 was completed in March of 2020, where zoning bylaws amendments were made to restrict cannabis land uses in electoral areas D, E, F, and H. With the adoption of the consolidated zoning bylaw, we are now in the position to advance the implementation of phase 2 to create enabling regulations for the electoral areas that permit cannabis. It is important to note that over the recent years, after the development of the policy, staff have seen the previous demand for cannabis production facilities diminish, which could be for a number of reasons. However, the current zoning bylaw still lacks sufficient regulations to adequately address concerns regarding nuisances stemming from cannabis production facilities. Presently, if an individual intends to construct a cannabis production facility, it can be built adhering only to the general setbacks that are in the zone, which often are the same as a residential setback. The current zoning bylaw allows cannabis facilities in electoral areas A, B, C, and G, and cannabis production facilities are not permitted in electoral areas D, E, F, and H. The policy did, however, state that cannabis production facilities were supported in electoral area E. However, at the time, electoral areas E and H were under the same zoning bylaw, and with the implementation, it was then prohibited in both electoral areas E and H. After discussions with the current electoral area director, we would now like to propose cannabis to be permitted in electoral area E. Given what we have heard about cannabis over the past few years, we would like to consider implementing 2 different types of cannabis production facilities based on Health Canada licensing types. We're considering micro-cultivation and processing, which would be permitted in the agricultural and rural zones, and standard cultivation processing, which would be permitted in the industrial zones. Currently, there's 3 properties fully zoned in these zones for industrial and 3 properties that have split zoning. I'm just going to go into a little bit further details of what the differences are between microcultivation and standard cultivation. Microcultivation is intended for small-scale cannabis businesses. The licensing requirements from Health Canada limit the growing area to 200 square meters, and the processing is limited to 600 kilograms per year. You can see on the visual there of an NHL hockey rink, which demonstrates what a 200-meter squared growing area looks like. The proposed FERD regulations would be to allow microcultivation in agricultural and rural zones, restrict the use to parcels with a minimum parcel size of 4 hectares, which is 10 acres, establish a max building gross floor area, establish screening requirements, and follow setbacks that are consistent with those for a livestock building. 60 meters from your front lot line, 30 meters from your side and rear, 30 meters from the residential use, and 30 meters from a water course and well. We wanted to show an example of properties where microcultivation could occur under the proposed regulations. The map on the left shows all of the properties in electoral area H, which have an agricultural or rural zone and over 4 hectares in size. There are 93 properties. The map on the right shows all the properties within area G that are not within the ALR and have an agricultural zone over 4 hectares. There are 11 properties. Within the ALR, the FERD cannot prohibit cannabis produced lawfully when grown outdoors in a field or inside a structure that has a base entirely made of soil. But we are able to impose regulations on properties in the ALR or in non-ALR properties. We've taken an example of a 10-acre property located in Area G to show you what these restrictions or regulations would look like. We've placed a 600 square meter property on this, or 600 square meter building on this property, And it shows that this would actually only cover 1.5% of the property's entire size with a building of this size. So the impacts to neighbors would be minimal. The building is shown at the basic setback, so 60 meters from the front of the property and 30 meters from the side in this example. The other type of license and cannabis facility we'd like to implement is the industrial zones, is standard cultivation, which is intended for large-scale operations. The license requirements from Health Canada propose no limit on the growing area, have no limit on the amount of cannabis that can be processed, and facilities often range from 2,000 square meters to 200,000 square meters in size. The FERD regulations would be that this would be allowed in industrial zones, and the setbacks and screenings are those that would be already laid out within the industrial zones for other industrial uses permitted in those zones. To show you where the industrial zone properties are currently within the FERD, there's 3 properties that are fully zoned for the industrial zones that allow a cannabis production facility currently. So 2 in area G and 1 in area B. And there's 3 properties, 2 in electoral area B and 1 in area G, that have partial zones for industrial uses. A little bit about the scale of operations. So we wanted to show you the scale of operations. You can see that the scale of a micro cultivation facility is quite small, whereas a standard cultivation facility requires large buildings which are not suited in a residential interface area. These sizable buildings for a standard cultivation production facility can have major impacts to water, sewage, and stormwater, and are more suited to industrial zones. However, should someone wish to establish a standard cultivation facility, they would need to rezone their property if they are not located in one of the industrial zoned lands. This rezoning process would evaluate the effects on the surrounding community and would also be a public process. Next steps. So right now we're here today and we are currently developing bylaw regulations and having discussions with micro cultivation license holders to discuss appropriate building sizes. We hope to come back in November with a draft bylaw for consideration of first reading. And in the future, so currently the tasks beyond the scope of implementing the already approved policy would demand additional staff resources. We've had conversations with some of the EA directors about the feasibility of cannabis dispensaries or the establishment of cannabis lounges. We wanted to know that should the board indicate interest, staff could include additional cannabis related work to an upcoming work plan for these types of uses. Thank you. And now if you have any questions.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Antafia. Questions, directors. Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. Fantastic presentation. Thank you. Just, can you quantify you mentioned the drop in demand or inquiries? Can you give us examples of that?
Yeah, so we would deem it the green rush when we were having them, and it would be between 20 to 40 a week. We're lucky if we receive 1 every couple of months now. That would be high on the scale of inquiries we receive. So it's very few a year that we receive right now.
Perfect. Thank you. And if I may, you touched on a little bit about sales, retail.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of inquiries are coming through the door for retail cannabis?
Same thing. So very minimal amount of inquiries, not in very many places. It just doesn't seem to be the uptake that we had seen when the legalization had first happened, to what we're receiving now for demand. But the importance is still there to put some enabling regulations in our zoning bylaw. As I stated, these facilities could be built on any property with those zones right now, and there's no regulations regarding building sizes.
I guess everyone in the country didn't start smoking weed when it got legalized. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Director Castle. Director Adam.
Thanks very much for your presentation. Couple of things just to ask. In terms of what do you consider rural when it comes to a residential house with only 200 square feet or 200 square meters? Is that would be allowed?
Through the chair. So for a rural zoned property, that's what you're referring to.
So let's just take, for example, sorry to interrupt, the Sunshine Valley is
Yeah.
considered rural, but yet it's a residential community. And we had 6 grow-ups going for quite a number of years, 2 legal and 4 illegal. So now they're still operating to a certain extent, but so where does this come into play?
Right, so it'd be only applying to properties that have zoning. And we would be introducing a minimum parcel size of 4 hectares, which is approximately 10 acres, to try to alleviate the concerns of having cannabis facilities, a micro cultivation facility within a area that's an interface residential area.
That rules all of us up. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Director Adamo. Director Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to share something with the other directors who weren't, or newer directors who are, I think this is our first time we've had a cannabis discussion this term. But just for context, the rationale behind prohibiting it in some electoral areas, when I advocated prohibition in Area F, it wasn't with a view towards we don't like cannabis, we don't want it here. Because we wanted to be able to, my ask of staff is, what process can we have that will engage the community as these things go in on a site-by-site basis? And this is where we landed. So we prohibit it throughout the electoral area, but if an applicant wishes to pursue a zoning amendment, then that sort of engages the public engagement process. And the root cause for going this way is that from having these facilities in Area F, nuisance odor is a very real thing. And the health regulations, the federal health regulations around how these operations manage odor are non-specific as to how much odor is too much odor. So I just wanted to share that for context with the newer directors, and happy to discuss further offline if you want to get into the whys and wherefores a little deeper. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Director Davidson. So it's been a long time since we've discussed cannabis. I'm trying to remember. So it's open season on ALR lands.
Yeah, if it's grown in a field outdoors or within a building with a base entirely made of soil. That
Okay,
a local government cannot prohibit those types of facilities within ALR lands, but we can prohibit it in buildings other than those.
so that attracts people to non-ALR lands because they can put a conventional greenhouse up. Is that right?
So on an ALR property, they could put a conventional greenhouse up, and we couldn't introduce any enabling regulations like a minimum parcel size or a maximum building footprint for a greenhouse on an ALR property. But on non-ALR lands, we can have those regulations in place. And then for any concrete facilities, say with a concrete base, we can have a maximum building footprint and restrict the minimum parcel size of where that use would be allowed, even on ALR lands.
Good. I will pretend I understand. Good. Thank you, Ms. Antifief, for a very nice presentation.
Thank you very much.
So moving down to item 11.2, we have the FVRD Active Transportation Network Plan Project Update. It's an information item, but happy to answer any questions.
Any discussion, directors? None, we will move forward.
11.3 is the Cascade Lower Canyon Community Forest Overview and Revenue Sharing Policy. There is a motion for your consideration.
Okay, looking for a motion. Director Adamo, second Director Wardenberg. Any discussion? No? Good. All those in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
Moving down to reports by staff, I just wanted to provide the committee with a short update on a file dating back to February. At that time, the board had passed a resolution directing staff to prepare a report on the implementation of a bylaw prohibiting the sale and discharge of fireworks in electoral areas C and G. And I just wanted to advise that due to some of the major projects that have been underway, and particularly the recent EOC activation, we have had some delay in getting that report prepared. We do hope to bring it to you in 2023.
Thank you, Hinneman. Any discussion on that issue? None.
Okay, so then moving down to reports by EA directors.
Director Davidson, how would you like to kick off?
Sure. Nothing to report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Davidson. Director Johnson.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
You, Director Adamo?
Should say something. Been attending a lot of meetings over the last month and a half, the last 2 months actually. And it's been really good to reach out to the community. That month of August that is supposed to be a month off is really not a month off, but a great opportunity to connect. A lot of things happening in Yale this month for October that they've invited everyone out to. They have a great Halloween event taking place on the 31st, and the Yale Museum is doing their first, with the new ownership group or the new management group is doing their first event and inviting everyone out on the 28th from 12 to 4, where I will be a judge for a pie contest. So yes, very excited about that. My first pie contest judging. It'll be exciting. That's it.
Milestone. Thank you, Director Adamo. Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, a few things to report. I did have a chance to attend the AGM for the Hamilton Valley Homeowners Association, which went well. Regarding their situation up there, which has been corrected, thank you. Mostly for the weather. And I did have a chance to meet with the tourism Harrison River Valley for a short Zoom meeting. And I want to invite anybody who is in Harrison Mills to attend a fundraiser for the Harrison Mills Hall on October 14th. We have one of the best events coordinators in the valley, and I'm sure you will have a report or be part of his report. But anyway, at the Harrison Mills Community Hall, October 14th, we're having music bingo in support of the hall. Thank you.
Busy man. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And well, things are, just humming along in Area H. The wastewater treatment plant is just still on time and on budget, and they're very busy there. It's always great to see what's happening there. So much appreciated. I know it's a lot of hard work going on, but yeah, it's good to see all that action. We had our Area H Tourism Forum summer wrap-up session just to connect with Tourism Chilliwack and as well as some of our other partners around what summer looked like in the area. And for the most part, really the feedback was quite positive. Just appreciate working with Tourism Chilliwack around positive messaging, respecting the area and those kind of things. And it does seem to be making a difference. So we'll be continuing with that into spring and next year as well. And coming up, if anybody's looking for something to do on October 28th, we have our, Hillbilly Hullabaloo up in Columbia Valley, and great family event, 5 till 10, even with the dance. Come dressed as a hillbilly, but I guess you could just come if you want. But anyway, we're looking forward to that community event. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Director Dixon. Director McAhonik.
Thank you. So September 16th, the Chilliwack River Valley Residents Association held a community event, and in our meeting last night, they figured between 60 and 80 people attended at Thompson Park. I put up a booth there, was able to connect with people that had never really been out, give out some information on Fire Smart and some of the things that Fraser Valley Regional District. So thanks to staff for the swag. And the 24th of September was the Chilliwack Better River Cleanup. I think they had 175 volunteers come out. I don't have the numbers of the amount of things that were picked up, but it was pretty successful overall. And was calling for a rainy day, and it was actually a beautiful sunny day, so that was a bonus. The 17th, and there was also, I want to thank staff for coming out, and they had a booth and a tent set up there as well. So I saw a lot of people coming up and talking, and still doing the stakeholders monthly meeting. Sad to see Krista Rolick with the RCMP, who's been really integral to this group, is going to be leaving October 26th. So we're having the meeting, the last one where she'll be out on the 17th. But another thing that we've noticed this year, we've had less camping and garbage over the summer than we did, and we were trying to figure out what that was. I mean, a lot of us have been going out and talking. I think the stakeholders group, we've had more outreach workers working, and talking to people, and then, they were thinking maybe with COVID, we just had a lot of people out, whereas now we're having more campers out and they're maybe a little more respectful. So we're just kind of talking about what the difference is, but definitely a little less. But other than that, that's all news for our way. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Makahonic. Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. I know UBCM seems like long time ago, but I haven't really had an opportunity to report back on my activities at UBCM. So for the sake of those listening and staff in the room, I had 3 meetings with ministers during UBCM directly specific to Area G. I had an opportunity to meet with the Minister of Agriculture and as other members of the board did. We met with in regards to addressing illegal and unpermitted dumping in the electoral areas. We were advised that the FERD may have tools at its disposal already to address this dumping. Examples of the tools which may be included soil and sign bylaws. And while myself and my FERD colleagues suggested support in seeing more resources going to the ALC to use the tools that the province already has at its fingertips, it was suggested that the FERD may have a larger role to play in enforcement and surveillance. I met with the Minister of Forests and expressed the urgency of works that need to be done to address the scouring of the foreshore, protecting the dike along the Fraser River at the northernmost section of Nacomin Island to prevent damage and breach to the dike, which could be devastating to the agricultural and residential properties on Nacomin Island and other vulnerable areas downstream. I feel optimistic that the minister understood the urgency of the situation, and I was advised that any applications to the ministry would be watched for. And finally, I met with the Minister of Transportation, asking for clarity around any planned improvements to Highway 7 other than the Dudney Bridge replacement project, and expressed a desire within the community to be able to share their concerns for safety along the highway. And I was advised that someone from the ministry would reach out. Just like to say, I'd like us to consider reviewing the process of these meetings, these ministerial meetings at UBCM. I think that we could present a more coordinated, collaborative approach to these ministerial meetings. Another reason I'm reporting on this is I'm not exactly sure what meetings my colleagues had, and perhaps if we had had an opportunity to discuss what we wanted to address and who we wanted to address it to beforehand, we may have been able to present a more united front. I did observe many of the municipalities had very clear systems and processes for how they went about their meetings. And I just hope that we can maybe have a conversation before next UBCM on how we can really maximize and be most effective in these meetings. And so we can at least support each other in that. So I look forward to a conversation with that as we go on. As been referenced, there's lots of community fundraising. Tis the season for fundraising, and north of the river is no exception. Music Bingo Friday fundraisers at the Dudney Pub. We have fundraisers coming up supporting the Mother Earth Food Forest Garden in Desroches that's hosted by ACES, also the Desroches Elementary School PAC, and others. This Saturday night, we invite you to come out to Area G for the North Fraser Firefighters Fundraiser Dance, 4 F's in that, by the way, at the Desroches Community Hall, and enjoy a live band and cash bar hosted by the Sasquatch Lions Club. You can come dancing in Desroches after a fabulous round of music bingo that Director Wardenberg alluded to. I'm not sure Director Adamo appreciates you not listing him as one of the best event planners in the Valley, but I assure you he is. But come on out after your music bingo game at Harrison Mill. We can community hall jump on Saturday night, maybe. That's all. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Castle. And I have nothing to add, so I will turn things back. Oh,
Bill, I just have one. Sorry, I apologize.
Adam, please.
Apologize. Director. A couple things that I forgot. I attended the Yale AGM the other night and conducted their elections for them, and nothing has changed there. They have a very strong leadership group and are looking forward to working with them for the next year. And Holiday Trails Resort, which is the only business that's in the Sunshine Valley, has an annual event that they put on that's open to the public, and we get people from all over the entire Lower Mainland. They create their own haunted mansion or haunted facility, and it's full of live actors and actresses, and it's very worthwhile coming out as adults or with your children every Friday and Saturday right through till Halloween. So you can contact Holiday Trails and they will tell you what the timelines are. They're in the evenings on Friday, Saturdays. Well worth it if you like to be scared. That's all.
Wow. That sounds like something not to be missed. Good. Thank you. And we will turn things to Ms. Kinnaman now.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. So moving to public question period for items relevant to the agenda. We do not have any members of the public joining us in the boardroom today, but we'll just turn things over to our corporate officer.
Thank you. We do not have any members of the public joining us on Zoom today. We have not received any written questions. And as Ms. Kinnaman said, we have nobody in our boardroom. So we can move to the next item.
All right, so looking for a resolution to close the meeting.
Director Dixon, second. Director Wardenberg, any discussion? Hearing not all in favor, contrary, motion carried.
And just give us a couple of minutes to set up the room.
Good.